So I'll go. Right, hello everybody. My name's Nick Stokes, and I'm from the DSTL branch of Prospect Union. We're here to talk about the industrial action that's taking place within Prospect at the moment. Thank you all for attending. I do need to remind you not to be using work equipment to participate in this meeting. This meeting is recorded. You'll get a link through your email and you'll be able to send it on to fellow members. If we have any non-members looking at this, again, I remind you that that you are not legally protected in the same way members are, and you cannot take any industrial action. You can join Prospect at www.prospect.org.uk. And we want to make these meetings as accessible and as useful as possible. So we're using MS Teams for the meeting, and I will put captions and a transcription out for everybody to be able to see the written word. Now, I'm joined here today by Nik Males, who's kindly joined me from HQ to talk about the industrial ballot that's going on. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Nick. Sorry, we're not being unimaginative in sharing the same name, but for those of you who don't know me, yeah, I'm Nik Males, and I'm the full-time officer, negotiations officer, who helps look after the DSTL branch. Let's face it, they do most of the work, but I advise them and help them get to where they need to be. So yeah, thanks, Nick.
No, thanks very much for joining us. Well, I put out some questions to members about the ballot because I think at DSTL there's a little bit of misunderstanding and a little bit of confusion as to what the ballot's all about. If it's all right with you, I'm going to run through a few questions that members have got, and then we can come back to what the specifics are going to be for DSTL on this ballot.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all.
No worries. Well, the first question I've got, and I suppose it's a fairly fundamental one. What's this all about? Why are we doing it?
Well, hopefully, members will have seen, the quite steady stream of communications that's been coming out from HQ, since before Christmas. This all kicked off before Christmas when we were asking members across the public sector to take part in an indicative ballot, in that we were trying to gauge what the feedback was from our members around a few issues that we knew, causing lots and lots of issues. So primarily, and that was down to 3 issues. So ultimately pay, civil service pay, that's governed by the pay remit guidance, and I'll talk a bit about that in a bit. But also around, at that time, around headcount reduction. The narrative that was the government were banding around was an arbitrary 91,000 headcount reduction, which has moved on from then, in that the language is more nuanced now, in they're talking about savings, efficiency savings, which doesn't necessarily mean headcount reduction, but we all know probably does mean headcount reduction. So that's the second issue. And the third issue is about the proposed changes to the civil service compensation scheme, namely a reduction in redundancy compensation. And we can talk a bit about that. So we asked all of our branches across the public sector, not just DSTL, because this is a wider campaign, although we address it at an employer level, and we have to do that for legal reasons. So we asked indicatively, and hopefully members took part in that ballot. Now that indicative,
you got good strong response from that ballot.
Yeah, on average, across all of those public sector branches, we had a 60% turnout, which is absolutely, incredible. In some branches, it was significantly more than that, the average of 60% turnout. And that's really important, that people actually exercise their right to vote, even in an indicative ballot. And it's even more important when we get to a statutory ballot. But also, more importantly, in excess of 90% of people voting for strike action and action short of a strike. And we can explain a bit more about those later. So that gave us a really clear mandate across the public sector that actually our members were fed up. They'd had enough after 12 years of austerity, pay restraint, everything like that. It's a clear message, isn't it, from our members to us, the union, that our members want to potentially take action here. So we then moved into planning for moving to a statutory ballot in those areas where we know are going to be able to hit that statutory threshold. So moving to a statutory ballot, there are legal requirements that we have to fulfil to be able to do that. The government make it extremely difficult for trade unions and indeed you as the members to exercise that vote. So, for example, the biggest difference between an indicative ballot and a statutory ballot is it goes postal, because it's much more difficult to,
stuff gets lost in the post,
stuff
and it
gets
takes
lost in the post,
ages, and yeah,
everything like that. So we're moving to statutory ballot across the public sector. Now, people will probably ask the question, well, if it's being done across the public sector, why do we need to get involved in DSTL? The way that it works is effectively we have had to register a dispute with your employer. So we have a disaggregated ballot for the statutory purposes. So the dispute is with DSTL. So we have already written to DSTL, to the chief exec, and said, look, this is the dispute, around pay, around civil service compensation scheme reductions, and around savings. Unless we hear from you in 7 days about what you propose to do about that, then we're going to move potentially to a statutory ballot. So we got acknowledgement and we got a response which basically said, well, we can't do very much about it. We're told what we can do by Cabinet and Treasury, as in the pay remit guidance, and we take our guidance from them. So clearly we have now informed DSTL that we're moving to a statutory ballot. So that's what this ballot is going to be all about.
And the ballot opens on the 27th of January and runs to the 24th of February. Probably worth just talking a little bit about that ballot, because as Nick says, the government have deliberately made it difficult to run a ballot such as this. So it is coming by post, which of course is always a pain. But there's a critical element to this, because it's really, really critical that everybody returns their vote. Okay, because I know that previously when we've run ballots, people thought that not returning a vote was a no vote. Actually, it's much worse than that, because it can nullify the entire ballot. We have to achieve a 50%, is it?
So 50% of those who are eligible to vote need to have cast their vote for it to hit the threshold. After that, a simple majority is needed. So it doesn't matter whether people vote, and for quite valid reasons, people would, people are.
Yeah, take your choice. No. You can vote no, but just vote. That's the key thing: is return your vote, return the piece of paper, so that we can make this.
But this vote is, I want to reassure members here, this vote is completely anonymous. So even we don't know at Prospect how people have voted, because the legal requirements are that we have to conduct this vote through an independent scrutineer. So there's a company called Civica who, run lots of votes nationally for lots of different trade unions, and it's run through them. So effectively, we give them the membership information that we have and say, these people are eligible to vote. They sort all of that out, and they issue the postal votes to you, which have got unique numbers on them, which means they can identify, that vote has been cast. But even Civica can't tell who has voted what. It's literally, they put the stuff out, you post it back, and the number of votes and what those votes are registered. There is no voting ascribed to any particular members. We don't tell the employer. We're not able to tell the employer. So nobody knows how nobody has voted. A proper secret vote.
Yeah, good. That's the way it is. Now, obviously, the wording of the vote is also quite scary, isn't it? When you open up the piece of paper, it's deliberately scary and talks about breach of contracts and all sorts of stuff. So I think maybe we should clarify what that means.
Yeah, and it has to do that. It's a legal requirement that it has to say, that, what. Let's start off with. So, for a properly conducted statutory ballot that meets all of the legal requirements, and that's what you pay your membership fees for, is for us to get that stuff right on your behalf, and we do. We run these stuff, all of the time. So we look after that. Now, you are protected from taking in